Right. So, yeah, for the sake of the recording, Fabian was just talking about the importance of a grammar, like a snapping grammar that he has with his post-it notes and the environment. I was spending some time earlier today thinking about our work, and I came to the thing that I'm just looking at my notes. The most core thing about text is its insistence on context. No word means anything by itself. You got to know where it was uttered, where it was written, and what's around it, right? So when you're talking about a grammar, Fabian, that's really, really important. And in the real world, imagine putting down a glass on a table and having full freedom. You're going to be spending way too much time to make sure it doesn't spill. So the notion of snapping in XR, I think, is really, really important. This is something we've gone through with Andrew's work, where in the beginning, you could do anything with the text. You picked it up and throw it around. So for us to decide on the right, let's not call it constraints, let's call it scaffolding, because that sounds more positive, right? But the right kind of scaffolding is important. And I love your use of the word grammar, Fabian, because when I was working with Doug, he didn't really use the term grammar. I kind of put it on him. I said, because I don't know how, if you all know Doug's command language. It was based on, you write a sentence. It wasn't like DOS, where the commands seem arbitrary. It was logical. It was like open, this document name so and so, and then colon, O, meaning outline view. So you had all these options you would learn after a while, so you could really quickly do things. And I said, you have a full grammar. And he did agree with that. But Andrew, one of the things we talked about earlier today is the next volume of the book. And I really want us to have the notion that the book is quite separate from all our software and the lab and all of that stuff. And what we should try to ask people to look beyond what they think they know, right? And that really comes into this. How do we even try to develop a new grammar for what this might be? I looked at, sorry, the vision was precarious on the bed. Do not want that to crash in a meeting, physically crash. So what I want us to try to invite people, and I'm going to give you a link. Actually, Fabian, could you please repost the link for Andrew of the, why am I asking you to do it when I can do it just as easily, is what my wife would say. Right. Um, to go beyond what we think we know, right? To push people a little bit, what in their field can they know? And what annoys me, the Michael Benedict cyberspace book, there's a lot of great stuff in there. But what annoys me is that the notion of XR, even though they talk about having a point of view, in the images and things they do, there isn't really a point of view. That's kind of in a sense, the human is missing. So what I'm saying and what you're doing, Andrew, and what Fabian is doing, it's both trying to figure out how things should quite literally snap together. And that is an incredibly important discussion. I don't think any of us would have had that discussion until we actually tried these things. It's been amazing. Anyway, that was just my little monologue there. Actually, on the whole snapping thing, um, because I had this breakthrough with author being listed in the macOS App Store on page one, my download numbers are obviously considerably better. So that means I'm telling my guys now I'm spending a ton of money, relatively speaking, on them because Author is now iOS and Vision OS as well. And I'm telling them to do things like we don't have the facility to deal with citations in iOS or Vision OS yet. So they're now writing a protection around the citation. So on a Mac, you click on the citation, you can edit it, it's all cool. But if you do it on iOS now, you can edit the text inside and it breaks the whole thing. So we have to have a little protection. So we're doing the important thing. But it is really shocking in a way how much tweaking has to be done, even for the visual feel of it. You know, just like, yeah, it's interesting. So one more thing. Between you guys, Fabian and Andrew, uh, conceptually, where are we with sharing some kind of information? JSON / visual meta. Is there anything useful, Fabian, at this point that could go between the environments?
Alors, so the most pragmatic way, I'm just going to, so the last CSL JSON, I had it on the link. I guess that was this. It doesn't work. So this link doesn't work, but I'll still share it because that maybe it's an example I shared here. But what I do have that did work, and I think I have a branch for this, I guess called citations 3 weeks ago. Yeah, okay. That's the commit. And the branch itself with the, it's a bit of a mess, but anyway, at least it's about correct. It's about that spot. So I made a decision. It's not necessarily the best one, but it works. So at least it's not an incorrect one. Is to use CSL JSON, which is the way basically to get some citations, or at least a list of documents, a library of, for example, DOIs or titles or anything. Let's say, so it's a CSL JSON. Yeah, I'll put the link in there. It's because it's specific to academic citations, and it's JSON, which is easy in JavaScript to read and send around. It's also very small. So I have the example on my WebDApp server because that's what I use to read and write from. And the example, for example, would be this. And I believe if we check, yeah, perfect. So if you check, especially, I'll try again to share my screen, and please let me know if it displays anything.
Yep, we can see it this time.
Yep. Super. So WebDAV, to clarify, it's a web server, and you can have files on it. So that's super exciting. But you can save file on it, which is a lot more exciting. And you can save text files like this, a test, or you can save a JSON file. And here that JSON file has been opened with, for example, they cannot solve alone by innovation, including DOIs and whatever. But what's a little trick that I used is that there is the position here. I'm not sure if that's the right version actually, but anyway, it's fine. The point is I added the position in space, like this citation should appear at 0, so right in front of you on the x-axis, 2 meters up on the y-axis, and half a meter forward, so like right in front of your face, basically. However you display it, do you use the title, the abstract that field, the position, I think should be this is supposed to be in a comment section so that it's not rewritten over by another tool that's not aware of XR data. But I think maybe position there, right there was okay. I forgot. No, okay. Sorry. Here you can see at the bottom. Sorry, it's a little bit of a mess, but I did not plan to present this. So here you can see the correct version, namely that note is a field in CSL JSON that you put whatever you want in it. It's not officially supported feature. For example, the property page is officially supported, but position is not. So if you open Zotero, like I'm doing now, or at least I'm trying, let's imagine that I did it. Zotero. If I were to export this and write position as I did there on the left, it would delete it. But as a note, so if I take here a random paper, this one might not have a note. I guess in this one, if I take the same one, I can search on combi. No, it's not in this one. Voilà. Evolution of combinatorial and compositionality. And if I go in extras, I got this field, and this field is the position. So right in front of my face on X, 1.8 meters, so about eye level for me, and half a meter forward, basically. So this data is the data that you, Andrew, can read back, and that software like Zotero are not going to delete. They might not know what to do, like here, they just display it. But that's, let's say, the trick. So yeah, that's my pitch for using CSL JSON and optionally WebDAV. But yeah, any URL could be, as long as there is a JSON, a CSL JSON out, we could exchange this way. Does it make sense?
Yeah, kind of. So I'm curious, why CSL JSON as opposed to just JSON, which was what we were doing up until now?
Yeah, because I did not want to reinvent a format, and Zotero, which is open source and more popular than any tool I've done, supports it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to because I'm just developing what the group wants me to. So if the group wants me to switch from JSON to CSL JSON, I could put development time towards that.
So
I'm not sure if there's a
is a
noticeable
type of JSON. No? It's
right.
there is no, if you just save as JSON or load the JSON file, it's compatible. It's a, I don't know the technical name. It's a format in JSON, or it's a sub grammar of JSON. I forgot the name, to be honest. But technically speaking, saving and loading JSON as CSL JSON will work. What I mean is those fields, let's say abstract, title, list of documents, has been specified so that the different software that support CSL
Right.
JSON
We'll want to
work with it.
just
I made a decision for this one just because it looked like it encompasses usage.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, as long as we match our our file names for things and put them in the same places, we should be able to have data that's read by both software in different ways, which is great.
We can also agree on what's minimally acceptable. Like we don't have to support CSL JSON in its entirety. Maybe title and the position in extra is enough. And in the future, if we want to support more than this, I don't know, page number, or maybe, for example, here I just support the position in space. So let's say there, but I don't support the orientation. Like this to me and this is the same, which is obviously wrong. Because yes, if I'm here and there, it should be oriented toward me, I guess.
Yep.
So I don't support
Unless you just
this. It
assume
was like
that the software is always going to orient it towards the camera, which is
we can
like
also
spray.
do this. We can also do this. But let's say to have a citation in space that both our software solutions support, I would argue through this, the bare minimum is there.
No, bro, you're still muted.
Yeah. So my question is obviously to do with visual meta. This kind of any kind of JSON could just be stuck inside a visual meta, so that shouldn't be a problem. And you've now explained, Fabian, what CSL means. So, Andrew, if you just have a look into CSL and if you think it's reasonable to use this subset specifically, that will be very interesting. Now,
Yeah,
to
we can use whatever we want. The only thing is we already developed it in JSON. So like I can change stuff. That's okay. It just depends on what you guys want me to put time towards.
well, how significant? I mean, please spend a little bit of time having a look at it to see if you believe it's a significant effort. And then we can look at prioritizing. I think Fabienne is saying that it should be not that bad, right? So, but Andrew, that's a call for you to make when you actually have a look at it, see how it fits in your world.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how we want to like what specific aspect of the project we're using it for. Because right now we have JSON used in two different ways in my lab, and we can change either of them. One is the library, which I think works quite well for saving all the information to the library.
Right. So, what?
And then the other one is the saving and exporting of the scene.
So I think the workflow that we want, this is what I want, and I think this is what we all want. Please tell me if you disagree. Is again starting out in reader because that represents the outside world. And you're going through a document and it's a bit much, so you want a wider view. You click a button or something, it sends to Safari and Vision, of course, whatever browser's available, um, something. And that allows a WebXR rendering to happen of something. Right? The obviously important questions here, is it the full PDF? Is it the HTML version of the PDFs, the content, so to speak? You know, these are important questions. And once that is done, the person works on this wider space, multidimensional space, at the end of the session to be able to save that, send it back out to reader. So a new visual meta gets created that all it has is the JSON CSL or whatever. So that the next time someone goes into webXR from that button, the layout is the same. That's the kind of thing we're looking at, right? At least.
So you want to save it per document now? I thought we were saving per library.
Yeah, but
Has this been a change?
no, this would be an addition. And the library, the way I see it is that the library JSON stores two things. One, a list of items in the library and their externally accessible metadata, meaning how to cite them, the reference section, that kind of stuff. So we can have a citation tree.
Right.
And then you have,
And that's correct.
yeah, that's exactly. So then in addition to that, what we should have is the, yeah, okay, I'll just keep calling it the JSON. It really doesn't matter, but the information about the spatial layouts. And this is where the discussion that we had with Andrew, Yumi, and Dini, where Dini got a bit concerned about the timeline came up because what I'm talking about is at the back of the document, it really should state what its view is in XR, whether it's in your build or in Fabian's build or something else. And a notion for that would be something as simple as put the reference section on the right, and then I want a small window with an abstract here, you know, that kind of stuff. Because
Okay, so sorry, I didn't know you were so gone.
no, that's why I'm covering my mouth so you can see that I'm shutting up for once in a
Oh,
while.
okay. I'm gonna like basically say it back to you kind of, and you can verify stuff. You interpret it. It sounds location. We no longer care about having multiple documents relative to one another. We just want one at a time. And that
No.
saves as visual meta at the back of the document.
No, very important point. I think
Okay.
Dini,
Well, what part I got wrong?
I think Dini, who is our main academic use case, would like more than one document open.
Right. We can still open multiple, but it sounds like you just want to save one document at a time. So if you load in another document, they then sort of overlap or replace one another because you're saving it, save other document data on a document. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
This this goes into the
Or we can
discussion.
save it as a workspace.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this goes into the discussion we had in the beginning of today of kind of the grammar of a space. You know, this is something we talked about before, way before Sloan, of the notion of where is something in space, where is a second thing in space. Hang on, I'll just address that when Brandel's here. Hi, Brandel. So your timing is impeccable. We're addressing a spatial issue, and that is Fabian showed us amazing new work, and it's accessible. Fabian, could you please put a link to that again in the chat so Brandel could try it? And we're now talking to Andrew about the whole JSON flow. And the issue is that we have two almost competing notions. One of them is a JSON of a library, which contains the list of the documents plus basic stuff. And then the structure of the library, where documents are in relationship to each other. We also need to have JSON for each document. So let's say you open up a document, you put abstract there, references there, you have a space for it. That should be saved when you leave the space and appended onto that document itself, right? So then the question Andrew just brought up, if you have those two types of environments, what happens if you open two documents? Will they then just overlap? Which is a very interesting issue. So what you probably, yeah, Fabian, please take over.
Yeah, no, but just very briefly first, I'll have to go in 5 minutes because initially we're just the two of us, so I kind of changed my schedule a bit. Yeah, well, life. And second, it's a different question. When Frode, you asked before, like 10 minutes ago, you asked like, could those two solutions, let's say my virtual world and what Andrews has been working on, talk to each other? My answer was straight up yes, and I gave one solution through this CSL JSON of how this could be. Now, what they would do with this data and how they would be interpreted is still completely open to interpretation and what's the right way to do this. But as soon as at least we have one format that's supported both ways, then they can quote unquote talk to each other. And I would argue if that can be done with minimal or at least no change from both sides, then we can start after a lot more about like, yeah, how do we collaborate? What's the data? But I would personally prefer like we just display the title with the in the right position. When I change in my software and I save it, then Andrew reloads it and see the result and vice versa. Only after this, then yeah, we can discuss about what to show, what not to show. But yeah, the bare minimum is one item in place moved, saved, reflected in the other solution.
The thing is that
Yeah, right now, that's been, sorry, Fred.
no, please, Andrew.
I think there's a definite delay between Japan and here. Um, uh, shoot, what was I even saying? Yeah, so what Fabian's talking about right now, since we're talking about grammar, is called a workspace in my environment. It's the layout of what's in the space and where things are. Um, and then there would be the library, which is separate. And now we're talking about the idea of putting visual meta in each document. We're just not sure what goes in there, if that includes workspace position data, or if that is just bits of information like, hey, I appended a note to this. Is that correct?
Fabian, do you want to take that or shall I take that?
Yes, very briefly, because I would argue, with all politeness, sounds like it's not my problem. Like whatever you do on your end of the solution, however you display it, whatever format, if you display a potato per page, yeah, I'm also fine with this. As long as whenever there is a change that is meaningful, let's say moved in space, I get an update, like the save file in a format that I can interpret, like the one I suggested. You can do on your side whatever you want. It's like as long as there is this minimal understanding, let's say a CSL JSON with a URL and using the extra field. And I'm not, again, not lobbying for this. I'm just putting that out because that's the one version that was the quickest for me to implement. I proved, quote unquote, that it works. And I give an example, but it's no more than this.
So, Fabian, that leads to the question before you go. Do you want to be able to send information about one document to our environment or shared environment, or do you want to also be able to send a workspace of, let's say, 2 or 3 documents in space? Do you want to be able to send that as well?
But this is the case now, namely that I send a library, a CSL JSON is a set of documents, and hijacking the extra field to have their position in space. So it's a set of documents with their, I mean, it's a set of metadata about documents, including the new extra field for their position in space.
But when Andrew receives this, he will clearly know inside that there are different documents, right? So they're not glued together, so to speak.
Yes,
So you are, in other
correct.
words, sending metadata about a specific document plus metadata about the workspace.
The position of each document within a workspace, yes.
Okay, so that means that logically, Andrew, in your library, the workspace, is that just an aspect of the library then? It is, right?
Here, let's say we can imagine there is a single workspace, and yeah, there could be more, but the point of that earlier demo, not the one shown today, but the one that I linked on Slack a couple of weeks ago actually, was to have a single set of documents within a single library within a single workspace. Because I would argue once that's been done, to do it multiple times, you quote unquote just abstract it away, and I would say it's relatively simple. And I would suggest not to think too much about it before a single exchange has been made, because yeah, we can declare multiple libraries and multiple workspace. It just like I didn't have the time to do that yet. I think in terms of exchange, as long rather as the format is this example of format is agreed on, we can do more. But I would not argue to do more before we do this like minimum test to exchange data.
Okay. Will you be able to join us on Wednesday? I'm not sure if you heard me, Fabian. My connection is not great. Will you be able to join us on Wednesday?
I'll do my best. I'm not sure. I'll let you know.
Okay, because this is a very, very important topic, obviously. And the fact that Andrew is integrating with not just my place, but two places, that means we have a much better opportunity for making something that's not making some obvious mistake because we didn't think about it.
So just to argue, I really got to run, but here it's not as if we were like declaring 20 new industry standards. I think doing a couple of back and forth through usages, through tests of like what's the library, where we move it, I think it's safer. And I run. Sorry. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Fabian. Yeah, I'm with Fabian that having the concept of messages being passed back and forth between a couple of different conceptual frames of reference is a useful thing to commit lightly to, and to have a flexible view of its form and function, so that you can iterate it, and also so that there isn't a full expectation of full compatibility out of the gate. Being able to just play with two things interacting with each other without necessarily having to be equivalent. So yeah, it seems like that's probably the more likely outcome in the near term anyway. Different apps aren't going trivially, aren't the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if oh yeah, I don't think Fabian. I'm just going to give you a link here, Brandel. So this is what Fabian has been working on, and it's mostly self-evident, but a really cool feature is that if you grab a post-it by the top left-hand corner and put it onto another post-it's top left-hand corner, they snap next to each other, which is really useful. So we were talking earlier about a grammar, also a scaffolding of how we interact. I'm going to text you that link as well, Fabian. So when you're in the headset, you just click on the text from me. So you don't need to. It's kind of automatically there. There you are. Right. So, but because the thing is, oh yeah, Brandel, I don't know if you saw, but the author is now on the front page of the macOS App Store in the US, not here. So that's nice. So now I have significantly more downloads, which means I can afford to pay a bit more for programming, which is nice. So a thought experiment for me, or a thought issue for me, is I can do a lot native with my app. For someone to click a button in Reader to want to go to webXR, it has to be really compelling, because of course you click a button and what happens? You go to Safari, then you have to click two more buttons. And that is actually an effort, in the same way that people, even on a normal web, they don't always click on a link because the loading time is an effort, it's a barrier. So that's why the discussion we've had on what's the point of XR is so crucial. And the point has to be to use the space. So what Andrew has been working on, I think, is really, really perfect to use that whole space. And that's why I'm so grateful for the discussion today, for not just have a default loading, but to have things in a more, for the end user, useful placement. That's what we're talking about a bit earlier. I mean, okay, just for fun, one thing that, and this is just to run past to see what you guys think. Imagine you're reading a document in the headset in Reader, and you want to see how it relates to other documents citation-wise, right? Which is something we've looked at before and Adam and Mark has built. So you click a button, it opens in webXR. And because, okay, here's the thing. Andrew, this is really important. Sending something to, are you there, by the way? My connection is a bit weird. I can't see you move.
The connection's not good. I can hear you mostly. It's cutting out occasionally, but I can understand you.
Okay. No, it's just you were frozen from my view because of my incoming. But is it better now that I've removed the whole video thing?
Honestly, not really, but I can still understand you.
Shutting down some other services. Yeah, being in Japan, high tech. Being in the village, not so much. Right. Okay. So here's the really important.
Some vignettes out quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing that I realized that's
Yeah,
really important. When you receive into webXR JSON, it is not just the data, it's also the view spec. Just like Doug Engelbart had, when you open a file, you specify a view spec. Meaning, in Reader and equivalent apps, you should be able to click on a button that says Open to see citation tree, or Open to see easy read layout, etc. So when you receive it in webXR, you know that, the user doesn't want to see this just in the default view. They want to go straight to see the citation layout or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. You can put any sort of data you want, assuming we're still using JSON. Having a view mode is a good idea.
Okay. Good. So that's
Once
probably
I figure out how to get the Troika text rendering better, we can start working on having actual like the document content itself rendered, which I think will be a big step. It just right now that would just destroy any sort of performance.
yeah. I've been talking to Fabian about him being able to spend significantly more time helping you on that particular issue. So if that all works out, if he has the time as he hopes he will, that would be good. And I'm sure
Okay.
Brandel has
Yeah, I
some
still have to
things.
look into potential options. Maybe some way to like pause the draw calls or something. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's above my pay grade, but yes, that sounds good. So some of the takeaways from today's calls are the notion of grammar. Fabian used it in a way that I wouldn't. I'm very glad he did. So now we're talking about a grammar of opening. You want to be able to say, open this as. I think that's going to be really, really crucial because from my design philosophy, every time the user has to make a decision, that adds to their fatigue. So if they can instantly say what they want and not have to open another environment and then re-specify it, I think would be very useful. I think that means we can easily extend it. For instance, someone can be in Reader, come across the name Brandel Zakernuk. Sorry for pronunciation, Brandel. I'm sure your last name, I didn't say it perfectly. Select that and then in a menu item, click open this in webXR and show me what this guy has worked on, for instance. So it's not just a document that's open. So that means that it must know your library, but that gives the search function or the view function for that corpus.
I guess the question there would be, does it do the search first and then generate the library that contains all the search results and then send that to the WebXR environment? Or does it send the entire library and then do the search in the WebXR?
The way that I think about it, and Brandel, please contradict me if you want to, I see the webXR as being a powerful freestanding full application. I think in a few years it will be. So I would like all the data to be there all the time. So it just sends the command and through whatever means the data is either sent or already there.
I kind of see it as like a viewing space. So if you're sending, like if you do a search, the way I see it, you would generate a library in Reader now, that has whatever results you want, and then that just sends the library over. It seems a little strange to me to make a specific search function that would only ever be used by like one software, but maybe this would be more universal.
What do you think, Brandel?
I think two things about this. One is that what the webXR app is doesn't have to be contained in just the webXR per se. So it could be that there is some other processor system that is backing it and kind of fielding data and things if there turn out to be computational issues and ceilings that people are hitting on a device that's necessarily constrained in order to manage it. And so that's something to be able to use if necessary. The second is that when you have a negotiation between different applications, different runtimes, they're actually different value systems. In the same way that Fabian was using, did you say protocol? No, it's a grammar. I would say there are different protocols in the sense of almost a human protocol. Then sort of an ongoing negotiation about what kind of information is available and on what terms, so that there could be subsequent kind of asking and answering for more data as the two platforms talk to each other about being able to develop a composite view. Hopefully that doesn't sound like waffle. The idea that, yeah, like if you invoke the construction of a view on a webXR side, that it can then make multiple queries back to the other system to go like, do you have anything about this kind of way of representing things? And if it says yes, then get that, and if it says no, then it just sort of makes it up or whatever, you know. So that's I think a constructive thing to do. Does that make sense, Andrew? Am I just
Yeah, like conceptually that makes sense. We're definitely not there yet with the project.
Oh no.
But
I wouldn't pretend to aim to be there in the foreseeable future. I just mean that's actually my just a long-term vision for what inter-application sort of communication needs to entail. You know, the trusted application boundaries where you just sort of let them act as proxies for each other's execution is inappropriate and incorrect. It's not going to take us past the next couple of years of trust and safety breakdowns. Everything needs to be treated as though it's as unsafe as the web, and so we might as well sort of. So like one of the things that we can do to prepare for that is to actually think about what we want to do with consuming heterogeneous input sources. So if Fabian's system is different from yours, then that's actually kind of good because it means that you get a chance to think about what those conversions are. And if you want, that's one of the things that Universal Scene Description, USD, does relatively well, is that it has reasonable closure over the obligation that you as a consumer of data that you only partially understand have to pass back that data that you didn't understand or care about, so that you do what you want with the things that you can, but then you give stuff back in a way that renders it recognizable. The help that USD per se is supposed to give to you, specifically the developer, is not there yet. So don't worry about having to integrate it. But my goal over the next year is to make sure that USD is clearly the right choice for being able to manage that kind of thing. So it's not definite in terms of what kind of role it can play for you, but yeah, it's a goal. So yeah.
Right. Oh, video's back on.
Nice.
I heard you at the end there, Brandel. Are you talking about that for even for something like sharing between Fabian's environment and what Andrew's building?
Maybe it depends on what kind of help one gets from USD. Fundamentally, something like a plain text visualization, a plain text representation like USD or binary, is in principle not that different from JSON, in terms of the fact that once you have a robust understanding of what you mean by anything, you can say it in any language. What USD has, JSON doesn't, is liver peas. This strength ordering and inheritance hierarchy kind of schema, which is similar to the CSS cascade. You know, the way that cascading style sheets work is that they use the first letter to mean this inheritance hierarchy cascade system. Otherwise, it would just be style sheets. And so it's an important concept in computing. And JSON doesn't have that. JSON is obviously, it's not opinionated about what it is that it's conveying. It's just opinionated about where the braces go and the double quotes. So so you could do something USD-like with JSON, or you could borrow philosophically from some of the resolving resolution techniques, resolution in the sense of when you settle a fight, not how many pixels there are on screen. And that could be fine, and it might not even be full USD, but that is precisely the kind of job that USD was built to solve for Pixar. It's just that it was primarily for computer graphics, building, you know, shows like Moana and Big Hero 6 and stuff like that, rather than for passing around media about hypertext or media in an academic context.
Okay, so that was very useful. I'm going to walk through something, Brandel, and tell me if it's appropriate what you're suggesting, and also tell me if you agree with the use case. It's based on the notion that in an external piece of software, you have some buttons that will send stuff. That's what I'm going to call it, stuff to XR, right? So it will be library data, maybe, document data, maybe, or both. And it'll be the positioning and also an action, a view, an initial view. One button, I'm trying to be as simple as I can. One button when reading one document should be open up in webXR and there's a default view. Similar button should be in the library. Open this library in webXR and it'll do that too in a default view. Additionally, you should be able to do the thing we just discussed, such as open up in library as a citation view with this document in the middle. That's that half. And then the other half is sharing between what Fabian is doing, where let's say you've been working on a document, you got all these amazing views of it scattered all over the place. That information, you should there have a button, so to speak, to send it to Andrew's webXR where it opens. And then Andrew immediately said, what happens if you already have a document in front of you, so to speak? You know, how is it seen in the workspace? And I'm wondering if you come into a new environment, the thing that you came with is selected, so you can easily move it into a position. So if it happens to be overlapping something, that's okay. You just do this and there it is. I don't know. How should we deal with that, guys?
Well,
Go
oh,
ahead.
okay, I'll be quick. I wonder if fundamentally we're looking at the concept a little bit off. Instead of it being like, we have to make sure my software is compatible with Fabian, since we're both kind of just testing stuff, maybe we should be like, my software is compatible with the reader export, when whichever form we decide that is, and Fabian's software is compatible with the reader export, which is the same thing, right? Like that means ours are now compatible. But instead of looking at how do we get his and my software to talk to each other, we just look at and we agree on some structure that we all reference. And then it can be both of ours work with each other, reader works with it, any other tests, as long as the tests are built off of that structure, everything will just kind of be able to send information to one another.
So yeah, so what you're
Yeah,
saying,
I agree with that.
yeah, what you're saying is that it's not necessarily the same thing in all these different environments. You know, the reason you would use these different environments is to do different things in them.
Yeah, but the data is still passed in the same format. Maybe they send different amounts of data. Maybe they don't care about certain bits. So Fabian's export doesn't care about, I don't know, how like where the citation lines are, right? He doesn't have lines, whatever. So he just doesn't include that data. But whatever the format is still carries over.
That's
And
right.
then
Yeah. And yeah, so you have sort of, I sort of think of it as two different questions here as well. It's like you have your own application or runtime or workspaces scene graph, and that's the scene graph has always been and probably always makes sense to be thought of as a pyramid, as a tree. You have a root, and then you have things as children in it, and then a leaf or some node of that scene graph can be this imported data from one place or another. And depending on the constraints that are applied based on its presence, its position in a scene graph, which could be negotiated. You could be like, I want this here, which corresponds broadly to this node, or I want it to be down in this hierarchy down onto where the table is or whatever. And that could change the representation, the appearance of something, so that you have, in the same way that like CSS today is responsive, in that if you have an element and it has a maximum width of this, then you want it to go to 3 columns. And if it only has a maximum width of that, then it goes to 2 columns. I'm sketching things that are beyond the scope of what Andrew can produce with the Sloan grant. My apologies for that, but in abstract, like the idea that you not only is that data different between applications, but it may be different between different parts of your scene graph, depending on where you want to put it. But it could also be live, potentially. So rather than an export, one of the cool benefits of this kind of philosophy is that once you have the idea of a live stage versus an export, then it can remain up to date in real time, irrespective of heterogeneities in the visualization between the two worlds, the two places, or even two parts of the same scene graph on your own place. So you could have 2 paragraphs in different parts. You could have a live copy of 2 paragraphs in your one document, and one of them is constrained to be inline like a paper page, and the other one is blown up to be sort of parsed in visual syntactic text formatting, but they are the same paragraph, and so as you live update it, then it changes. I think that's not unreasonable as a goal, and also means that once you have that interchange, I think your point, Andrew, about just agreeing on a format solves a lot of problems there.
So I think conceptually what we need to do is to invent, I've jokingly called it SDF, Spatial Document Format, which should just be the means through which you can transmit a normal document plus spatial stuff. And we could maybe have a related one, spatial library format, which is the scene/workspace description, right?
I don't know if we need to give it a custom like format though, because it's using JSON or SDF JSON if we go with Fabian's route. They're both based on JSON, and we're writing this in JavaScript, so no real point in like making something new, but we should agree on the structure.
What I mean by the SDF is not to make a new format as such. It is an approach, but let's pretend we're doing it. So what I mean is, for the sake of joking, we make sdf.info, some website, and people go on there to find out what to do. And it would say something like, we use, for our spatial document format, it means we use JSON to encode this. We use this to encode this in this way. The components of it are standard, 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 standard. All we're doing is how we have them deal with each other, because the library JSON needs to understand how to refer to the documents with this extra special stuff. And once we have a nice way of doing that, I think we've come conceptually quite far. So, Andrew or Brandel, what is, other than nicely nodding, which is appreciated, do you have any further thoughts on that?
No, that makes sense. Having it be a structure rather than an actual format makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It is 10, so I have to run in just a second here, but I want to hear what Brandel has to say.
Yeah,
I know SDF was a straw man name, but SDF does mean something in USD. It might, I'll look into it more, but it might actually already mean literally what you want. But yeah, I need to spend more time for various reasons, getting closer to USD and its principles, and so I will be able to give you more details on whether it solves your problems or if it just adds to them within a couple of weeks.
all right, that's good. Andrew, I'll see you on Wednesday. Are you going to be in the lab? And have you been using the Vision? Has Dini brought it in? Because I have a few Vision-specific questions for you.
She has brought it in. I don't use it exclusively, but I do sometimes put it on and test.
Okay. It would be really interesting if you play around a little bit with the spatial video, either on an iPhone or film there, and just because there is something interesting there that I think is related to our work somehow. Anyway, thank you for today, Andrew, and I look forward to Wednesday.
Yep. Take care.
Brandel, how much have you been playing with the spatial video? I think it's really quite amazing.
Oh, spatial video. I don't have an iPhone 15 Pro, but you can take it just with the headset itself, and so I've done a little bit of that.
Yeah, some people say it's better with the headset. The scale is better on the headset because the cameras are further apart, more human. These are obviously very close, so there is a scale issue. People seem bigger because it's like a smaller creature looking. But yeah, it's really, really fantastic. I highly recommend that you get an iPhone 15 and just start filming the family. When I look back at things, it's crazy.
Yeah, I would love to get like an iPhone 15 Pro or whatever comes after that if I can get a good excuse. I've never bought an iPhone. I tend to get them for work, so because then I can install internal software on it as well. And so that's same with all of my devices. They all have to actually have the thing with all of the bugs and the problems that come from it. But I will try harder to do that this year because I think that it would be worthwhile to get whatever is bleeding edge and by consequence causing all problems. Yeah. So in terms of what the iPhone 15 Pro does, I believe that it doesn't just go literally with the left eye, right eye of the two lenses. What I think it does is try to construct a disparity map so that because it knows that there's this disparity with this known sort of nominal interpupillary distance, it sets it out to something that is a more realistic human IPD. That said, that process is going to be flawed. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it does an absolutely fantastic job. It's just like with any kind of recording, to learn the constraints of it. So not to be too close, not to be too far away, all of that stuff. Today we went to here in the village. We ended up at a pet store where they had reptiles, and they just took the huge reptiles and just put it on us like in a zoo. It was amazing. So of course I filmed that, and yeah, it just looks incredible in the headset. And of course, it's version 1, so it's going to be better on this, that, than the other way in the future. But yeah, just
Yeah,
the
yeah.
stereo aspect is amazing.
And the change from, are you on 1.1 or 1.2?
I am on the current beta.
Oh, the current beta is very likely to be 1.2 then. Yeah, there will be changes between that as well. So yeah, I totally agree.
That's impressive stuff. But yeah, it's nice to be finally featured in the App Store, which means that I'm now telling you guys
Congratulations.
to do a lot of vision stuff as well. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Congratulations on getting that top spot. It looks great on
Yeah, the thing is, there's an animation on top. I haven't actually seen that because I'm not in the US, but that's just basically things just moving. It doesn't have much information, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a pretty abstract information, abstract film of the dynamic typography. Yeah, if you don't have it, I can make sure. I'll try to see if it's still up and then record it if it's.
Yeah, that would be really cool, actually. I would appreciate that. And now I'm gonna have to go to bed. It's 2.
Yes, indeed, indeed.
We're
Well,
going to Tokyo tomorrow morning, so another step.
wonderful.
Will you be
All
with
right,
us
well,
on
enjoy.
Wednesday?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Anyway,
All
hi
right.
to the family. I could hear them randomly in the background, so give them
Yes,
a
we're
shout.
on holiday at a beach house.
Oh, where? Like
Just
Halfway
down the
Bay or
coast.
something? Sorry?
No, down by Capitola.
Oh God, super nice.
It is lovely, yeah.
Super nice. All right, thanks for coming by. See you soon. Bye.
So yeah, enjoy Tokyo.
Will do.